Welcome to the Advancement Podcast. Our mission is to reach the lost in America by advancing leaders and churches so that communities are transformed. Join us as we discuss how to stay healthy as leaders, work in teams, and lead change. Come on, let's advance together.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Advancement Podcast. Hey, if you're enjoying what you're listening to, if you could go click subscribe, that way you get the content every Tuesday and Thursday on whatever podcasting platform you're listening to us on. If you could go rate us as well. If you're watching, go click like on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube. That way you get everything straight to your inbox on Tuesdays and Thursdays. My name is Todd Barham. I'm the host of the Advancement Podcast here, as always, with the president or lead consultant of Advancement, Timothy Dominic Ware. How you doing, Timothy? You doing good?
Timothy. Now
Timothy.
I'm Timothy today.
Timothy, hey,
I'm good. I'm good. How
good.
are you?
I have to give you a shout out. You came and preached for us last Sunday or Wednesday. Did a really good job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, didn't we have a good crowd for a Wednesday?
I was shocked.
I hyped it big time, and the people showed up.
I was shocked.
Yeah, it was
midweek.
Hey, it was a good crowd.
Yeah, it was. I was still shocked.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's people of God show up. It's good.
Yeah.
We're excited. You never want to complain about being shocked on attendance in a good way.
No, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
So we're coming up on a big milestone at the Advanced Podcast. I mean, this is episode 90. So in a few weeks we'll be celebrating episode 100. Whoa. We're going to try to do some special things, but we're excited about that. This is a big milestone.
Yeah.
And so that's cool.
How many episodes have we done together? I kind of lost track. Where was the midpoint where we handed off from Taylor to me? How many have we done together?
I'll look that up.
Oh, you don't know? Okay, sorry.
Well, Taylor.
I thought you do.
Taylor and Marco are going to come back for the 100. We're going to record a couple episodes to celebrate with them, and that'll be fun. And I was, I'll know when we do.
Those?
I'll know when we do those.
Stay tuned in 10 episodes, and we'll know.
Yeah, we'll tell you. Yeah. Anyway, so we're just going to talk today, just us, about we're going to do some. We've been doing a lot of series, but we're going to do a few standalones here.
Standalone.
And so today
we gotta finish these strong.
Sometimes I worry about you, Todd. Sometimes I worry about you, dude.
Hey, it's Monday morning. It's early, okay?
It's not early, dude. It's after.
Hey, for those that are not on the farm lifetime that have 4 kids, okay?
I don't have 4 kids.
Yeah,
it is, but I have been up for over 5 hours.
Okay, and
you may have been up for 2.5.
Maybe, we'll see. I don't know. I got up at some point.
My son goes back to college at the end of this week, and so he's out digging in a ditch right now where I'm building a retaining wall. He's working on it. But anyway, thank you, Caleb, when you listen to this.
Yes, finish strong, Caleb.
so we're going to talk about finishing strong. Okay. Before we got started, you asked me about it. Why? Because it's crazy. I've been amazed during this COVID pandemic and all these things.
Lots of transitions.
I've been shocked at how many
I've seen several
staff and even senior pastor transitions.
Yeah,
they're just in my network that I've been connected to, multiple denominations. I was just shocked by it.
Yeah,
and I've had to have probably, let's just say it like this, in the last 6 months for sure. But I would even say in the last 6 months, I have probably had 7 or 8 conversations with leaders who are in transition, talking to them about finishing strong. And in the last year, it's probably been closer to a dozen that I've talked to them about finish strong. And this is a big deal.
Yeah.
In my world, my opinion. I just think it's important. Actually, I think it's more important how a leader finishes than how they start.
Yeah.
because you can always, there's redemption and there's grace and there's those things when you
there's a honeymoon period in the beginning.
That's right.
People give you grace coming in,
but your last impression is often the one that's remembered the longest.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is just, whether you're a church leader or church pastor, staff member, however you're listening, I think finishing strong is something that we all need to hear, because even us as pastors, we have those leaders that have texted us at 7 a.m. in the morning on Sunday saying they're never coming back to church, leaving us in a lurch. So we've all had that happen. So why is it, Tim, that finishing strong, just maybe from a psychological standpoint, why is it so difficult for us as humans to finish strong?
Well, I think part of it is, first of all, if we're leaving because we're hurt, if we're leaving out of that, the fact that most people just don't like confrontation, and it feels confrontational to come to have a meeting, to sit down and say those things. But even when you do, if you've turned in your 2 weeks notice or your 3 weeks notice or whatever it is, you've turned in your notice, though, I think there's a part of us that it's when we have something new that we're dreaming about, because our transitions are usually, I'm transitioning out because I'm going to retire. Mm-hmm. I've saved, I'm ready, we're retiring, or it's the I'm going from being a staff pastor to a senior pastor, or I'm taking a new pastorate somewhere. I'm moving on from being a volunteer in your church to taking a staff position.
Right.
We start to get vision and we start to dream about the next place.
Yeah, we look ahead.
I tell people all the time, once you've lifted your eyes, it's hard to bring them back down.
Yeah, that's true. So what would you say are the most vital things that we need to maybe, because I'm a checklist guy.
Okay? I know you are.
I
made a checklist.
If it's clearly spelled out for me, then I know I can do it well.
Yeah. Well, let me before we get your checklist.
Okay.
Tell people that say, well, why, that would push back. Well, let's just get it over with. And there are moments when you're making transition where you just have to get it over with. But I think the Bible shows us and models finishing, working to the end. Jesus was with the disciples, discipling them, mm-hmm. and was ascended right from their presence. You see this, Moses is there, and he hands it off to Joshua. He's the leader, and then he goes up on the mountain.
Yeah.
There are modeled in the scriptures this idea of we should do this. I mean, Jesus said, I guess actually Paul said, mm-hmm. Paul wrote that we should do everything as under the Lord.
Under the influence of
influence of the Holy Spirit. But Paul writes
Jesus in there.
So Paul writes that we need to be doing everything is under the Lord. So just letting up and coasting, that's not really a biblical thing there.
It's not. Well, I mean, I guess kind of where
let's say, as a senior pastor, when you know somebody's leaving and they take their foot off the gas.
Well, as a senior pastor, when someone tells me they're leaving, I just let them leave, because
you don't expect them to work hard to the end.
They won't. I mean, 95% of the time, of the umpteenth million staff members that I've had leave, I've probably had one or two that left the right way.
Well, and that's because we don't teach them to leave the right way.
I know. I'm not saying it's all their fault. I'm just saying, but I don't think it's something that's ingrained in our culture.
That I agree with. Either. I agree with that too. I mean, the millennial, your generation, is the generation that believes, well, I'll be loyal to you while I'm here, but when I get loyalty is not long term. Loyalty is in the moment.
Well, yeah. I mean, your culture was brought up. Your parents stayed with one company for their whole life and retired.
Heck, when I was bivocational, I worked 18 and a half years for the same company.
Yeah, that's not ingrained in the millennials. We go to the next company. We we switched jobs, man, I mean, so I don't know what the statistics are on pastors switching jobs, but I know millennials, I don't have people staying in the same jobs more than 2 or 3 years sometimes.
Well, this is the gig economy, right?
Right.
I got this gig, I got that gig, I got this gig, you know, so I think there's that piece, but I don't care if your gig is short or if your gig is long.
Yeah.
How you end actually leaves a bigger impression than how you start.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So here's what I recommend if you're moving in ministry. Let's do it from a ministry perspective.
Okay.
The first thing you have to do is I think you have to plan a gap. If I say to Todd, Pastor Todd, I've taken a position at Church of Living Water in Manchester, Massachusetts, whatever,
United,
yeah, wherever, and if I've taken a job there, then I want to tell where I'm going that I have to give notice. So I'm gonna give you 2 weeks notice, but I'm gonna tell them I can't start there for 2 more weeks.
Right.
I want to plan a gap in.
Okay.
If I don't, then all of my mental energy, because it takes more discipline to put my head back down and stay focused where I'm at than it does to look up. I think about you're a Star Wars guy.
Love Star Wars.
I'm a Star Wars guy too. Not a big fan of the Rey movies, but
we'll forgive you.
Well, they don't follow the lore that the rest of us grew up with.
Yeah. Well, Disney, the evil empire took over, and
that's right.
You know.
So anyway, point being that in the original trilogy, there's that moment where Yoda says to the ghost Obi-Wan on Dagobah, he says, I can't train this boy. Never is his mind on what he is doing, where he is at.
Yeah.
Remember that? He's in the little hat, in the little hut.
Yeah.
And there's something important about keeping our mind, and it takes discipline. And if I give my energy, if I don't have the energy to do that, so if there's no gap, if I leave one church on Sunday and I start at the next one the next Sunday, I have to be thinking about where I'm going.
Yeah, you have no time to prepare.
I have no time to prepare for that. So I plan in a gap. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
If I plan in a gap so that go ahead.
And part of it is us as pastors hiring people, we can't demand that they show up without ending well. I think sometimes we as pastors, especially those of us hiring, we want them so quickly that we don't give someone a chance to end well. Because, you know, for me, you know, I just had a new hire.
Yeah.
And I mean, I needed them faster than they wanted to get there. And I had to fight the urge because their heart was to end well, like you said, and there was a gap in there for a lot of reasons. And you know, for me, I kind of had to fight, and it was 6 weeks out, and I had to fight going, I need them there now over, and some of that is us as pastors. We have to allow them to finish well and not pressure them to get there.
Yeah. Well, if I plan the gap in, then that means, look, here's the reality. Especially if you're moving to another city, there are things you have to do for the next place, but I can put a cap on it. I can put limitations. What are the absolute things I have to be concerned about the next place? And that's all I do until my last day.
Okay.
And I stay focused. If I plan that gap in, now in that gap, I also believe, especially if you're a senior pastor, you should plan a vacation. You should plan a little downtime, because we all know that when you start a new job, you're trying to learn, and
it's a lot.
Yeah, it takes so much more, and you need to be able to give your family a chance to breathe,
catch breath, reset.
And if you're moving, you ought to have the chance to get settled, get the boxes unpacked, or at least most of the boxes unpacked. You know, the days of just,
my wife's gonna be mad at me listening to this podcast, although she doesn't listen, so it'll be okay.
Well,
because I never have done that. I've always been buck wild, rip roaring into the new assignment.
And there's a passion piece that most of us we get anxious about getting there.
Yeah.
Okay, we get so anxious about getting there that's one of the reasons we
forgot. Yeah,
we take our foot off the pedal where we are, because we're already trying to put gas for where we're going.
Let's take a moment and hear a word about advancement.
This is Brian Hyatt, lead pastor at Cornerstone Church in Rowlett, Texas. I'm so thankful for the relationship that I have with Tim and the entire advancement team. Tim has invested in Cornerstone and myself, and we have seen tremendous results. Our attendance and giving are up 20 to 25% since we implemented the key strategies that he brought. Advancement has also helped us develop leaders so we have a more balanced team approach to ministry. For more information, please go to www.advancement.cc. You won't regret it.
Now let's get back to the podcast.
So creating space so that we don't have to do that. Now, in that space, what do you do? The second checklist thing is I would say you have to ask yourself the question, if I was coming in to be the new person in my job, what would I want in place?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For me, something as simple as that. I've made all my staff create for me and share with me is list of logins and passwords. Well, you would think that that's not important, but that is so important. And I make them all make a list for me and share it with me. That way, if they were to go on, I have what I need.
Well, if I'm leaving a place, or if you're leaving a place, or what I recommend to pastors is I say that you need to create a list, logins, passwords. Yes. Yeah. But you know what? Another list that you need to make for the person?
What?
Who they need to meet.
Oh, yeah. That's a good list.
Who do you need to meet?
Influencers.
I always say, who's the first person that your replacement, who are the first 3 people that your replacement needs to go to lunch with?
Yeah.
You know, those kind of things.
Maybe past the staff. I mean, that's an obvious.
But the problem is there's not usually overlap.
Okay.
If there's overlap, you can do that. But if there's no overlap, then this is about me just saying, okay, someone's coming. Now, that may mean that I contact X people, because it's not just in the church. Who do I need to close the door with and prepare for the next person? So this is about not just people in the church, but this is community leaders. This are those types of things. So I have to make a list of logins and passwords, those things. I have to make a list of the people that I need to communicate with. I need to make a list of the people that the person following me needs to communicate with. And what we all know about coming into a new place is there's a lot to learn, and we're trying to get our feet wet. And I think the other question we have to ask is, what project do I need to close so that I set my successor up for
success? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, for me, that's what's constantly in my mind, setting up systems that one day if somebody comes in and takes my place, which inevitably will happen, they go, okay, well, this guy, he may have been crazy, but at least he set up something that knows what's going on.
But that's still not the same thing.
Okay.
Because in a senior leadership role, there will be systems and they'll make adjustments. I'm really talking about what are the things that I have control of.
Oh, okay. I got you.
What are the things that are on my plate? I need to close this down. If it's, it could be as simple as, we've been trying to get these TVs installed. Let's get them installed. I went to work in a church, and they told me, well, we've been talking up for months. We've been talking for years about hanging a TV in there and mounting a monitor over here. Oh, I would bring stuff up, and they'd say, well, we talked about that. And Pastor, it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I go, what are the easy wins and I should say, what are the things that you need to just get out of the way? What's the knick-knack stuff that has bugged you and will just
fix that
be
toilet? There
you go. Fix the toilet. Get those little things out of the way.
Yeah.
Right. Give somebody a clean slate to step into.
Yeah.
As clean as possible.
Yeah. Don't hand them a list of tasks to do when they walk in the door.
In ministry, it's hard enough to come in. I mean, you're trying to develop new relationships.
Yeah.
I've got to develop sermons for these people.
Many times you move to a new area and don't know where anything is.
Yeah. So there's enough pressure. If I really am going to do what the scripture says and love others, then I have to love the people who are going to follow me in my position. And part of that loving of them would be to give them the best possible situation, because there's enough pressure about everywhere else.
Yeah. So why do you think, and this is more of a 10,000 feet question, why do you think that COVID has exacerbated people leaving so much?
I don't know that it's exacerbated it. I think with everything else, with the other things that have slowed down, we may just be more conscious of it.
Okay.
And I do think there are a number of people, we've seen this across the board, in the secular world, they were on the edge of retirement.
Yeah.
And when all this happened and the financial components, they just said, I'm just going to retire.
Yeah.
So there was a substantial part of the workforce that just retired.
Yeah.
And they're moving to the lake, or they're moving to wherever, and they're just calling it off, and they're going to, why should they take an income drop?
Yeah.
Why file for unemployment? I'll just pull on my retirement.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think there's some of that. I know that a couple of the staff transitions to senior pastor transitions are following a leader that retired.
Okay.
It's just interesting to me that that's really kind of what's happened. So when you're leaving, to finish well, plan a gap. I think that's so critical. I'm sad to say that if you don't do that first, nothing else works.
Okay. Because you're not coming in fresh?
Well, not only are you not coming in fresh, all your time that you're wrapping up at your last place, you're spending so much energy thinking about where you're going, you don't get to finish well.
Yeah.
The gap is the key one. I met a young leader a few weeks ago, and he called me and we had lunch, and I said, when do you start? And he said, next week. And I said, when are you finished? Well, this Sunday. And I went, and you're moving? Have you found a house yet? We're going this weekend.
Whoa.
So all of those things, there's so much pressure.
Yeah.
And I apologized to him. I said, I wish we would have talked. You sent me an email and told me there was a transition, and we didn't talk about it, because you should have had at least 2 weeks in between.
Yeah.
And depending on the size of the move, it should be no less than 2 weeks between positions in a ministry transition, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah. Moving's hard. I mean, regardless, and having to work with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what other checklist items do you have?
I've got
one more question to ask.
Okay. The three things really are: plan the gap. Okay. And if you don't do that, nothing works.
Yeah.
And then it's ask, what would I want to be in place for me?
Mm-hmm.
And then make those lists. We talked about the list of passwords, the list of people they should meet, the list of projects that I should try and finish, even if I have to work a little overtime to get them closed down, so to give somebody a clean slate. And the third one is to limit my contacts with the next place to the absolutes. What are the absolutes?
Yeah.
It really is. Oftentimes it's more about moving. I don't need to talk to you about the office. Don't call me and say,
I mean, background checks, employment stuff. I mean, that's okay.
That's okay. But don't call me and say, hey, we got a roof leak.
Yeah, that's not my problem yet.
That's not my problem.
Yeah.
But you still have to, you have to close on the house. There are things like that. So make a list of these are the absolutes. Anything that can wait till after you've finished where you are should wait.
Yeah.
Anything that can should, because those become distractions from finishing well. You want, when you leave, your boss, whether it be or the board or the church, to say they worked hard.
Yeah.
Till their last minute.
Right.
They sowed into this. They were good stewards of their position here.
Yeah. They were good to the last drop.
Yeah. All right. What's your next
All right,
your last question?
I want you to kind of put an exclamation point on this. More of a if somebody's on the fence listening and they're considering leaving and they're thinking about leaving well, tell them why it's so important. What is some of the irreparable damages that you've seen from pastors, church leaders? And you don't have to get specific because I know we need to protect. What are some of the damages that you've seen from not leaving and wrapping everything up well?
I think, first of all, it's usually relational.
Okay.
We see hurt within the body of Christ because a pastor or a board or somebody will say, just go ahead and leave. You're not doing your job anyway.
Okay.
Or you end up with a board. I have seen board members and pastors be resentful of people because we're paying them and they're doing nothing. They've spent all day down at the U-Haul place and they're out getting boxes on our nickel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those types of things. Just your reputation, which is the reputation of Jesus,
right,
are usually the places where the most damage is done. We do represent Christ.
Yes.
In everything we do. We're not responsible for how anyone else treats us, but we are 100% responsible for our own actions. And if we consider that to be the reality, then we should take responsibility for all of our actions, especially those on the end. The reality is no one wants somebody to get lazy at the end.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to have that person working for them. The flip side of it is most people don't want to work hard at the end.
Yeah.
My favorite, because I'm historically a Major League Baseball guy, George Brett was asked before he retired, so when you retire, what do you want your last at bat to be? You want to hit another home run? And he said, no. He said, I want to hit a slow roller to third base, and I want to have to run hard and be out on a very close call at first base. I want to be remembered as the guy who ran hard to the very last moment.
Yeah, that's good.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, may we all be remembered as the guy that worked hard to the very end.
Yeah, I've always been that guy. I mean, I love baseball. Kind of taught me some of this, that you run hard. It doesn't matter. Coach always told us it doesn't matter if the ball's getting there before you. You run hard because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
they may drop it, they may miss it, and if you let up,
you never know.
You never know.
Yeah.
So we should not let up until it's over.
Yeah.
All right. There you go.
You gonna ask your question?
What's your takeaway?
Okay. I really like I hadn't thought about it before, playing the gap. I hadn't thought about that there needs to be a gap in between, because you got to move, you got to do all these things, you got to get ready, and there just needs to be a gap, psychologically and for practical reasons. That the gap will help you out a ton. So make sure you do that.
Yeah. There you go.
All right.
We'll see everybody next time on the Advancement Podcast.
If you would like to keep this content coming, all Tim and Todd ask is $1 per show. See how to give, maybe even sponsor an episode or series on the website advancement.cc. Until next week, continue to advance the mission of Jesus.